Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku's power woke up too early. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The smell of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was not something you ever truly got used to. It was a thick, cloying cocktail of rotting kelp, rusted metal, sun-baked plastic, and the distinct, sulfurous tang of sewage runoff. It was the scent of neglect. For Izuku Midoriya, however, it had become the scent of hope. Come on, young Midoriya. Put your back into it. The glutes. Engage the glutes. Izuku gritted his teeth, the enamel grinding together with a sound that vibrated through his skull. His fingers, wrapped in tattered sports tape, dug into the rusted undercarriage of a Showa-era refrigerator. The metal was hot against his skin, searing him even through the calluses he had spent the last 90 days developing. I'm trying. Izuku wheezed. He planted his feet in the shifting sand. It was low tide, meaning the sand was wet and packed, but it still offered poor traction for what he was attempting. He wasn't trying to lift the fridge, that was still impossible. He was just trying to drag it. Just 10 meters. From the shoreline to the designated scrap pile, All Might had marked with an erratic line of spray paint. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. He visualized his muscles, the meager, stringy fibers that had only just begun to harden after 3 months of hellish torture. He imagined them tightening like steel cables. Pull. Just pull. He heaved. A vein bulged on his forehead, throbbing in time with his racing heart. The refrigerator groaned, the sand beneath it shifting with a wet sucking sound. It moved. An inch. Maybe 2. Then, Izuku's foot slipped on a patch of slick seaweed. Whoa! Gravity, cruel and instantaneous, reclaimed its prize. The refrigerator slammed back down, and Izuku face planted into the grit, skidding chin first through the sand. A cloud of seagulls scattered, screeching their mockery. For a moment, Izuku just lay there. The sand was in his mouth, gritty and salty. His lungs burned as if he'd inhaled fire. Every joint in his body ached with a deep, throbbing resonance that felt less like exercise fatigue and more like structural damage. Oh dear, a booming, yet strangely hollow voice echoed from atop a pile of tires. Are you alright, my boy? Izuku spat out a mouthful of sludge. He pushed himself up on trembling arms. I'm okay, All Might. I just lost my footing. Toshinori Yagi, in his skeletal true form, looked down from his perch. The late afternoon sun cast long, jagged shadows across his hollow cheeks, making his sunken eyes look like abysses. He wasn't the towering pillar of justice the world knew. Here, in the trash and the wind, he looked like a ghost haunting a graveyard. He hopped down, landing with a lightness that belied his height. A sudden cough racked his frame, and he brought a handkerchief to his mouth. When he pulled it away, Izuku saw the familiar speck of red. You're pushing hard, Toshinori said, his voice raspy. But remember the schedule. We are at month 3. This phase is about conditioning the foundation. You aren't meant to move the heavy appliances yet. Izuku wiped his chin, leaving a streak of mud. I know. But the entrance exam is in 7 months. Look at me, All Might. He gestured to his own body. He was wearing a teal tracksuit that had seen better days. The sleeves were rolled up, revealing arms that were defined, yes, but still incredibly thin. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a runner who forgot to eat. I'm still so small, Izuku whispered, frustration leaking into his voice. You said one for all requires a strong vessel. If I don't bulk up faster, I won't be ready. I'll explode. Toshinori sighed, a sound like wind rushing through a cracked window. He placed a large, bony hand on Izuku's shoulder. The hand was cold. Muscle is not built in a day, Izuku. Nor in 3 months. It is built through tear and repair. If you rush the tear, you never get the repair. You just get broken. Toshinori looked at the fridge, then back to the boy. You have heart. More heart than anyone I have ever met. But your body is stubborn. It's weak, Izuku corrected bitterly. It is unprepared, Toshinori said firmly. There is a difference. We are carving a masterpiece out of marble, my boy. We cannot use a sledgehammer. We must use a chisel. Trust the plan. Trust me. Izuku looked up into those dark eyes, seeing the blue electric iris burning within. He nodded slowly. I trust you. Good. Tashinori's mood shifted instantly, the blood coming back to his voice. Now. The sun is setting, and the tide is coming in. One more lap of tire hauling, and then we call it a day. I have brought pork buns. Pork buns? Izuku's stomach gave a treacherous roar, steaming hot. But only if you finish the lap before the water hits the break wall. Izuku scrambled to his feet, fatigue temporarily forgotten. Yes, sir. As Izuku ran toward the tire pile, Tashinori watched him go. The smile faded from the number 1 hero's face. He rubbed the side of his torso, where the terrible scar webbed across his respiratory system. He's right to be worried, Tashinori thought grimly. He is behind schedule. The boy's metabolism burns through muscle mass as fast as he builds it. At this rate, in 7 months, he will be borderline, just barely enough to hold the torch without burning to ash. Tashinori looked at his hand. It was trembling. And I don't know if I have 7 months left to give him. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and bleeding oranges. The shadows of the trash piles grew long and distorted, turning the beach into a labyrinth of silhouettes. Izuku finished his lap, collapsing near the seawall. His chest heaved like a bellows. He was drenched in sweat, his hair matted to his forehead. Time! All Might called out, checking a stopwatch. Better. 3 seconds better than yesterday. 3 seconds. Izuku wheezed, staring at the first stars appearing overhead. I'll take it. Rest now, Tashinori said, handing him a water bottle and a paper bag containing the promised pork buns. Recovery is part of the training. They sat together on a relatively clean patch of concrete, facing the ocean. The rhythm of the waves usually soothed Izuku, but tonight, the air felt heavy. Static. All Might? Izuku asked around a mouthful of bun. Do you ever worry? About the transfer? Tashinori paused. He swallowed his food slowly. Worry is a constant companion in our line of work, young Midoriya. Why do you ask? Izuku looked at his hands. I did the math. The amount of energy you put out, a 100% Detroit smash changes the weather. It creates tornadoes. And you're saying I have to put that inside this? He poked his own bicep. It feels like trying to put a hurricane inside a glass bottle. Tashinori chuckled softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. A glass bottle breaks. You, my boy, must become a steel canister. That is why we are here. That is why. Tashinori stopped mid-sentence. The air had changed. It wasn't a sound initially. It was a feeling. A pressure drop. The seagulls, which had been noisy minutes ago, had gone completely silent. The insects in the scrub grass had ceased their chirping. All Might? Izuku sensed the shift in his mentor's posture. Tashinori was no longer slouching. He was rigid, his head cocked to the side. Quiet, Tashinori whispered. The command was absolute. Izuku froze, half-chewed bun in his mouth. From the darkness of the labyrinth of trash piles behind them, a sound emerged. It was the wet, squelching noise of something heavy dragging across metal. Schluck. Scrape. Schluck. Is it a vagrant? Izuku whispered. Sometimes people come here to strip copper. No, Tashinori said, standing up. He moved in front of Izuku, shielding him. Copper strippers don't emit killing intent. The smell hit them next. It wasn't the ambient garbage smell of the beach. It was sharper. Chemical. Like battery acid and burned rubber. A figure stepped out from the shadow of a towering stack of crushed cars. He was massive, easily 2 meters tall, though he slouched heavily. He wore rags that looked like they had been stitched together from industrial tarps. But it was his skin, or what passed for it, that was terrifying. It looked like gray sludge, embedded with jagged pieces of scrap metal. Bolts, screws, shards of glass. They were part of his dermis, shifting and rotating as he moved. He dragged a massive, rusted anchor behind him like a toy on a string. The figure stopped 10 meters away. He didn't have eyes, just 2 glowing green slits in the muck of his face. Found you, the creature rasped. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Tashinori stood tall, though he remained in his skinny form. I believe this is a restricted area, citizen. It is unsafe to be here after dark. The creature laughed. It was a wet, gurgling sound. Citizen? You don't recognize me, do you? No. Why would you? You crushed us so quickly. We were just ants to the symbol of peace. Tashinori's eyes narrowed. I crush many villain organizations. You'll have to be more specific. The Scrap Iron Syndicate, the villain hissed. 5 years ago. You dismantled our operation in Kawasaki. You put my brother in Tartarus. You dropped a building on me. Tashinori stiffened. Izuku saw the recognition flash in his mentor's eyes. Magnetokinesis, Tashinori muttered. Dredge. I thought you were dead. I was, Dredge snarled. He lifted a hand, and the scrap metal around him rattled. My body was crushed. But I rebuilt it. Piece by piece. I became the trash you threw away, and for 5 years, I have been hunting for the golden hero. Dredge took a step forward, the anchor digging a trench in the concrete. He tilted his head, looking at the emaciated skeleton before him. But what is this? Dredge asked, genuine confusion coloring his hate. I followed your scent. The smell of that sickly sweet power, it led me here. But I don't see All Might. I see a dying junkie and a child. Tashinori didn't answer. He couldn't. Is it a disguise? Dredge mused. He stomped his foot. Boom! The ground shook. A wave of magnetic force erupted from him, ripping a dozen iron girders from the nearby piles. They hovered in the air, aimed directly at Tashinori and Izuku like spears. Show me! Dredge screamed. Show me the smile! Show me the power! Run, Tashinori whispered to Izuku. What? Izuku's legs were trembling. Get behind the seawall and run to the police station. Don't look back. But, go! Tashinori didn't wait. He stepped forward, steam erupting from his skin. In the blink of an eye, the skeleton vanished, replaced by the towering, muscular form of All Might. I am here! All Might bellowed, though Izuku, standing this close, heard the wet strain in the shout. Dredge roared in delight. There he is! The villain thrust his hands forward. The 12 iron girders launched like missiles. All Might didn't dodge. He couldn't risk them hitting Izuku behind him. He crossed his arms in an X block. Clang crunch. The impact was deafening. All Might withstood it, his feet skidding back inches into the concrete. He swept his arms outward, creating a wind pressure that knocked the girders away. Texas. Smash! All Might threw a punch. It was a long-range blast of wind pressure, intended to knock Dredge unconscious instantly. But Dredge didn't fly back. As the wind hit him, the scrap metal embedded in his skin shifted, interlocking to form a curved shield. He braced himself with the anchor. He slid back 10 meters, plowing through a pile of trash, but he stayed standing. Weak! Dredge howled. You're weaker! I can feel it. The wind is stale. All Might coughed, a spray of blood escaping his lips. The transformation was already flickering. He had used up his 3 hours earlier that day doing hero work in the city. He was running on fumes. I have seconds, Tashinori realized with horror. Maybe a minute at most. Dredge sensed it too. He raised both hands. The entire beach seemed to groan. The magnetic field expanded. Cars, fridges, microwaves. Tons of metal rose into the air, swirling into a tornadic vortex above the villain's head. Die in the trash you created! Dredge brought his hands down. The avalanche of metal descended. All Might looked up. He could punch it. He could destroy the falling debris. But the exertion would deplete the last of his time instantly. He would revert in front of the villain. I have to. All Might crouched, preparing to spring. But then, a blur of teal flashed past him. Stop! It was Izuku. He hadn't run. The boy had grabbed a rusted pipe from the ground and charged. Young Midoriya, no! All Might screamed, reaching out. It was a suicide run. Izuku knew it. He had no quirk. He had no power. He was 14 years old and weighed 50 kilograms soaking wet. But his body had moved. He saw the villain distracted, focusing purely on the massive attack, leaving his center mass open. Izuku didn't think. He slid under the hovering debris, using the low friction of the sand. He closed the distance to Dredge in 3 heartbeats. Dredge looked down, surprised to see the small boy sliding toward him. Get lost, insect! Dredge didn't even use his quirk. He just backhanded the air. His fist, encased in jagged scrap metal, connected with Izuku's side. There was a sickening crack. Izuku was launched like a ragdoll. He flew 20 feet, smashing into the side of the same refrigerator he had failed to move earlier. He crumpled to the sand, motionless. Izuku! All Might's scream tore his throat. The distraction, however, was enough. Dredge's concentration broke for a split second. The tornado of metal above them destabilized, raining down randomly instead of in a focused strike. All Might didn't care about the metal. He moved. He appeared in front of Dredge, faster than sound. You bastard! It was a punch fueled by pure, unadulterated rage. It connected with Dredge's jaw. The villain's metal skin shattered. Dredge rocketed backward, crashing through 3 distinct piles of garbage before skipping off the water's surface and sinking into the bay. The impact cleared the beach. Silence returned, heavy and terrible. But All Might didn't pursue. He fell to his knees. Poof! The steam exploded. The muscle form vanished. Tashinori Yagi was left kneeling in the sand, gasping for air, blood pouring from his mouth. He crawled. He clawed his way across the sand to where the boy lay. Izuku. Izuku, please. He reached the boy. Izuku was curled in a fetal position against the dented fridge. His face was pale, his eyes unfocused. There was a terrible wheezing sound coming from his chest. Tashinori's hands, shaking uncontrollably, hovered over the boy. He saw the damage. Ribs broken. Likely a punctured lung. The arm he had raised to block the hit was bent at a wrong angle. All Might? Izuku gargled, red bubbles forming on his lips. I'm here. I'm here, my boy. Don't speak. Save your strength. Tashinori ripped off his own shirt, trying to press it against Izuku's side to stabilize the ribs. Did I buy time? Izuku whispered. His eyes were drifting shut. Tears streamed down Tashinori's gaunt face. Yes. You did. You saved me. You foolish, brave boy. A noise from the water. Splosh. Tashinori froze. He looked toward the bay. Dredge was rising. He was battered. His jaw was hanging loose, unhinged. One arm was dangling. But the metal around him was already shifting, knitting his body back together like a gruesome exoskeleton. Not enough. Dredge gurgled, spitting out salt water and teeth. You didn't finish it. Tashinori tried to stand. His legs gave out. He had nothing left. The punch had used the last ember of one for all he could access for the day. He was empty. A husk. He looked at Dredge, who was slowly limping toward them, gathering scrap metal as he came, building a massive spear. Then he looked at Izuku. The boy was fading. The light in his eyes was dimming. The internal bleeding was severe. Without immediate medical attention, Izuku would die in minutes. But Dredge would cover the distance in seconds, and even if Tashinori somehow grabbed Izuku and ran, he was too slow in this form. They would be skewered from behind. I am going to die here, Tashinori realized. And the boy will die with me. And one for all, the torch that had been passed down for 8 generations, the only power capable of stopping All for One, would die in this pile of trash. Despair clawed at Tashinori's heart. No. He looked at Izuku. The boy was broken, but he was still conscious. He was still fighting to breathe. The vessel isn't ready, a voice in Tashinori's head screamed. He will break. He is already broken, another voice answered. If you do nothing, he dies. If you do this, he might live. And the power lives. It was a choice between certain death and a terrible gamble. Tashinori made his choice. Young Midoriya, Tashinori said, his voice hard and urgent. He grabbed Izuku's face with both hands, forcing the boy to look at him. All Might? Listen to me closely. We have no time. I cannot fight. You cannot run. We are cornered. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Listen. Tashinori reached up. With a sharp tug, he plucked a long strand of blonde hair from his head. He held it up in the moonlight. I told you that you needed to wait. That your body needed to be a steel canister. We don't have that luxury anymore. We have to pour the hurricane into the glass bottle and pray the glass holds. Izuku's eyes widened slightly, realizing what was happening. No. I can't. I'm not ready. You have to be. Toshinori shouted, the desperation cracking his voice. Eat this. What? Eat it. Now. To inherit the power, you must ingest my DNA. Dredge was 20 meters away. The spear of scrap metal was hovering, spinning, sharpening. Say goodbye, hero. The villain shrieked. Toshinori shoved the hair toward Izuku's bloody mouth. Eat it and clench your buttocks, kid. Scream from the depths of your soul. It was the most unheroic moment imaginable. There was no ceremony. No grandeur. Just a dying man forcing a dying boy to swallow a hair covered in sand and sweat. Izuku, fueled by pure instinct and the command of his idol, opened his mouth. He swallowed dry. He gagged, the hair sticking in his throat, but he forced it down. For a second, nothing happened. Dredge laughed. He pulled his arm back. The spear launched. Die! The massive spike of iron flew through the air, aimed directly at Toshinori's heart. Toshinori didn't move. He shielded Izuku with his skeletal body, closing his eyes, waiting for the end. Please. Let him survive. Take me, but let the boy survive. The spear hit, but it didn't hit flesh. Boom! A shockwave, violent and unrefined, detonated from beneath Toshinori. The sand exploded outward in a massive ring. The iron spear didn't just stop, it disintegrated. It was vaporized into shrapnel that flew backward, peppering the villain. Grah! Dredge covered his face as hot metal shards shredded his skin. What? Toshinori was thrown backward by the force, rolling across the sand. He looked up, his eyes wide. Where he had been kneeling, there was now a crater, and in the center of the crater stood Izuku Midoriya. But it wasn't the Izuku of 5 minutes ago. He was standing, despite his broken ribs. His broken arm hung limp at his side, but his good arm, his left arm, was glowing. It wasn't the gentle, pulsating glow of full cowling. It was a violent, chaotic discharge. Red veins of energy were tearing across his skin, looking like lava trying to break through rock. The air around him crackled with green lightning that arched wildly, striking the ground, the fridge, the trash. Izuku's head was thrown back. His mouth was open in a silent scream. His eyes were pure white, glowing with an overload of energy. The transfer hadn't settled. It had detonated. The vessel was overflowing. What is this? Dredge screamed, recovering from the blast. He sensed the power. It was terrifying. It felt like a star had just been born on the beach. You were hiding this? Dredge roared and pulled with all his might. Every piece of metal within 100 meters responded. The cars, the appliances, the rebar, it all flew toward him, creating a massive, chaotic golem of scrap, towering 30 feet high. I don't care what you are. I'll crush you into paste. The golem raised a fist the size of a minivan. It slammed down toward the glowing boy. Izuku didn't dodge. He couldn't. His consciousness was gone, submerged in a white-hot ocean of agony. His body was reacting on pure biological overload. The power sought an exit. As the fist came down, Izuku's left arm snapped up. He didn't throw a punch. He just shoved the energy out. Smayawash. The voice wasn't Izuku's. It was a guttural roar, a mix of the boy's vocal cords tearing and the raw sound of air being compressed beyond physics. 100%. No. Because the limiter wasn't working, because the vessel was too small to regulate the flow, it was more. It was 100% of the stockpile, forced through a limb that hadn't even finished puberty. The impact was blinding. A pillar of air pressure drilled straight up into the sky. The golem didn't just break, it evaporated. The metal was stripped away, atomized by the sheer kinetic force. The blast tore through the villain's construct, tore through the villain, and punched a hole in the cloud layer above the bay. The backlash was immediate. There was a sound like a gunshot, wet and loud. Izuku's left arm exploded. Not literally detached, but the skin burst open from shoulder to fingertips. The humerus shattered into powder. The muscles shredded. The shockwave knocked the ocean back. A tsunami of water was pushed away from the shore, revealing the sea floor for 100 meters. Then, silence. The dust settled slowly. Dredge was gone. Blasted into the bay, likely halfway to the horizon or unconscious in the deep water. In the center of the glass sand, the heat had turned the silica into a jagged sheet of glass. Izuku stood for 1 second longer. He was smoking. His clothes were tattered rags. His left arm was a ruin of purple and red, hanging by threads of tendon. His right side was battered from the villain's earlier attack. He swayed. All might. It was a whisper. Izuku fell forward. Toshinori caught him. The skeletal hero ignored his own exhaustion, catching the boy before he hit the glass. I've got you. I've got you, Izuku. Toshinori looked down at the boy's arm. He felt bile rise in his throat. It was a mangled mess. He had seen injuries like this before, but only on corpses or heroes who had been forced to retire immediately. Izuku was unconscious, his breathing shallow and ragged. The green lightning flickered faintly around his chest, threatening to spark again. You fool, Toshinori wept, pulling the boy close to his bony chest. You foolish old man. He was talking to himself. What have you done to him? Sirens wailed in the distance. The police were coming. The shockwave would have alerted half the prefecture. Toshinori looked at the boy's face. It was twisted in lingering pain, even in sleep. The transfer was complete. One for all had a ninth holder, but as Toshinori lifted the broken boy in his arms, struggling under the weight, he knew the dream of the symbol of peace had shifted. It was no longer about training a successor to be the strongest. It was going to be a desperate battle just to keep him alive. The vessel was cracked. And the power was leaking out. The world was not made of light and hope. It was made of noise and vibration. It was the scream of a siren that felt like a drill boring into the temple. It was the rattle of a gurney's wheels over uneven asphalt. It was the smell of ozone, burnt sugar, and copper blood. BP is dropping. 70/40. He's convulsing. Hold him down. Don't touch him with bare hands. Look at the skin. It's arcing. Toshinori Yagi sat in the corner of the ambulance, his knees drawn up to his chest. He was trembling. The number one hero, the symbol of peace, looked like a frightened vagrant caught in a storm. He stared at the paramedic trying to stabilize the boy. Izuku Midoriya was thrashing. Not consciously. His brain had long since shut down to protect itself from the pain, but his muscles were spasming violently. Every few seconds, a snap of green electricity would discharge from his chest, scorching the sterile white sheets. We can't get in 4 in. The paramedic shouted, sweat dripping down his forehead. Every time the needle touches the skin, the muscle fibers contract and snap the steel. His body it's rejecting everything. Detective. Toshinori looked at the man in the front seat. Naomasa Tsukachi was driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He had arrived minutes after the blast, coordinating the cleanup and the cover-up before the media vultures could descend. We're 2 minutes out from Mizudafu General, Tsukachi shouted back, swerving through traffic. I've alerted the private wing. Recovery girl is already en route from Yae. Toshinori looked back at Izuku. The boy's left arm it wasn't an arm anymore. It was a ruin, wrapped hastily in pressure bandages that were already soaked through with dark red. It looked devoid of structure, like a wet towel, but it was the sound that haunted Toshinori. A low, humming buzz emitting from the boy's body. The quirk. One for all. It was awake. And it was angry. It was like putting a reactor core into a cardboard box. The box wasn't just breaking, it was melting. The power wasn't settling into Izuku's DNA. It was fighting for space, expanding rapidly into a vessel that was months away from being ready to host it. I'm sorry, Toshinori whispered, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry, Izuku. Another arc of lightning snapped. It hit the cardiac monitor, blowing the screen out in a shower of sparks. We're losing him. The paramedic screamed. Crash cart. Manual compression. Don't. Toshinori lunged forward, grabbing the paramedic's wrist before he could touch Izuku's chest. If you touch him while he's discharging, it will stop your heart. Then what do we do? He's dying. Toshinori looked at the boy, his successor, his victim. He placed his own large, skeletal hands over Izuku's chest, ignoring the stinging bite of the energy that leaped to meet him. It felt familiar. It felt like his own power, but wilder, untamed. "Hold on," Toshinori begged, pressing down, manually pumping the boy's heart. "You wanted to be a hero, didn't you? Heroes don't die in the back of a van. Hold on." The ambulance hit a pothole, launching them all briefly into the air, before slamming back down and screeching into the ambulance bay. The doors flew open. White light flooded in. The void. It wasn't empty. That was the first mistake people made about the void. They assumed it was silence. It wasn't silence. It was the roar of a waterfall, deafening and constant. Izuku was floating in it. No, he was drowning in it. The liquid was thick, viscous, and glowing with a kaleidoscope of colors. Gold. Red. Purple. Green. It filled his mouth, his lungs, his eyes. It burned. It felt like swallowing molten lead. He tried to swim, but he had no limbs. He was just a consciousness, a speck of dust caught in a hurricane. Shadows moved in the distance. 7 of them. They were towering, indistinct figures, like statues made of smoke. One of them, the smallest, reached out a hand. He had white hair and eyes that looked like sad stars. "Too soon," the voice boomed, vibrating through the fluid. It wasn't spoken, it was felt in the marrow. "The cup is cracked," another voice said, rougher, deeper. A figure with goggles. "He's leaking. He can't hold the stockpile. We have to close the valve. We can't. The door is blown off the hinges." The boy forced it open. Izuku tried to scream. He wanted to say he was sorry. He wanted to say he was just trying to save All Might. But no sound came out. Instead, the pressure increased. The golden ocean began to crush him. He felt his bones, his metaphysical bones, grinding to dust. The first user, the one with white hair, stepped closer. He placed a hand on Izuku's forehead. The hand burned. "Breathe, ninth," the first user whispered. "If you fight the current, you will drown. You must become the vessel, even if you are a broken one. Let it flow through the cracks, or you will explode. Hold it together," the fourth user murmured. "Stitch yourself with will." Pain. White, blinding pain. And then, a beeping sound. Beep, beep, beep. The first thing Izuku noticed was the smell. It was antiseptic, sharp and chemical, layered over the faint scent of lavender. The second thing was that he couldn't feel his left arm. He panicked. The memory of the beach, the villain, the explosion, it all rushed back in a violent strobe light of images. He tried to sit up. "Do not move." The command was small, sharp, and brooked no argument. Izuku froze. He blinked, his vision blurry. He was in a hospital room, but it looked more like a high-tech laboratory. The walls were lined with machines he didn't recognize. There were no windows, just pale blue lighting strips. Sitting on a swivel chair next to his bed was a very small, elderly woman wearing a helmet with a syringe visor and a white lab coat. Recovery girl. The youthful heroine. "Good," she said, her tone icy. "You're awake. If you had moved, the sensors on your chest would have triggered the sedative again, and frankly, your liver can't take much more stress. Recov. Airy. Girl?" Izuku croaked. His throat felt like he had swallowed sandpaper. "Don't speak yet. Drink." She held a straw to his lips. Izuku drank. The water was cool. He drained the cup in seconds. "Where is All Might?" Recovery girl's expression darkened. It was a terrifying look on such a kind face. "He is in the hallway. I banished him. If I look at that oaf right now, I might violate my Hippocratic oath and beat him to death with my cane." Izuku tried to process this. "Is he okay? Is he okay?" Recovery girl let out a short, incredulous laugh. "The man is fine. Exhausted, emaciated, and stupid, but fine. You, on the other hand, are a medical catastrophe." She pressed a button on a remote. A holographic screen descended from the ceiling. It displayed a 3D wireframe of a human body, Izuku's body. It was lit up like a Christmas tree, but all the lights were angry reds and oranges. "Let's start with the obvious," Recovery Girl said, pointing her cane at the left arm of the hologram. "This is your left arm. Or what's left of the internal structure. Izuku looked. The humerus, the upper arm bone, was shattered. Not just broken in two, but comminuted. It looked like gravel. The muscles around it were torn. I have spent the last 6 hours performing surgery on this limb, she said. I had to use 3 separate quirks from the support staff just to hold the bone fragments in place while I applied my own healing. I have accelerated your cell division to knit the bone back together, but the structural integrity is compromised. Severely. She tapped the screen. The image zoomed in on the elbow and shoulder. But that isn't the problem, Sonny. Bones heal. Muscles regrow. We have quirks for that. She zoomed out to show the whole body. The chest, the legs, even the skull, they were covered in tiny, spiderweb fractures. This is the problem. What is it? Izuku whispered. You are leaking, she said bluntly. Izuku blinked. Leaking? The power Toshinori gave you. One for all. It is a stockpile of power accumulated over a century. It is immense. To hold it, one needs a body of exceptional density and resilience. She looked at him with a mixture of pity and frustration. You are a half-finished construction site. She stood up and walked to the side of the bed. Imagine pouring a gallon of boiling water into a paper cup. What happens? The cup melts, Izuku said. And the water spills, she finished. That is you right now. Your body cannot contain the energy. Even now, lying in bed, doing nothing, the energy is seeping out of your core. It is traveling along your nerves and vibrating your bones. These microfractures in your ribs, your shins, your spine? They aren't from the villain. They are from you. Izuku felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. He looked at his hands. They were bandaged, but he could feel a faint, pins and needles buzzing under the skin. Is it going to kill me? Recovery Girl sighed. She sat back down, her anger deflating into exhaustion. If you tried to use it again the way you did last night? Yes. Instantly. Your arm didn't just break, Midoriya. The energy output was so high it nearly vaporized the marrow. If you do that again, the limb will be necrotic. I'll have to amputate. And if you channel that power through your core? Your heart will explode. Izuku stared at the ceiling. The silence in the room was heavy. I just wanted to save him, he whispered. I know, Recovery Girl said softly. And that is the only reason I agreed to take your case instead of handing you over to the police for unlicensed quirk usage. You saved the symbol of peace. But the price, young man, is steeper than you realize. She turned toward the door. You can come in now, Toshinori. I know you're hovering. The door slid open. All Might didn't walk in, he shuffled. In his oversized yellow suit, which hung loosely on his skeletal frame, he looked smaller than Izuku had ever seen him. He refused to make eye contact with Recovery Girl, shuffling past her to the other side of the bed. Young Midoriya, he said. His voice was hollow. All Might. Izuku tried to smile, but his face hurt. You're okay. I am alive, Toshinori corrected. He looked at Izuku's bandaged arm, and his face crumbled. Because of you. And at the cost of... He gestured vaguely at the boy's broken form. It's not your fault, Izuku said quickly. I ate the hair. I made the choice. You were under duress. Toshinori slammed his hand on the side table, startling both Izuku and Recovery Girl. I forced the child to take a weapon he couldn't handle because I was too weak to finish my own fight. I panicked, Izuku. I thought I was going to die, and in my fear I cursed you. It's not a curse. Izuku argued, trying to sit up again, wincing as his ribs flared. It's a gift. It's one for all. It is a burden that requires a fortress to hold it. Toshinori countered. Look at you. Chio says you are leaking energy just by breathing. You can't train. You can't exercise. If you raise your heart rate too high, you might fracture your own sternum. Toshinori turned away, running a hand through his deflated hair. I should take it back. The room went dead silent. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. Thump. 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 What? Izuku whispered. I should take it back, Toshinori repeated, looking at his hands. If I transfer it back to myself, or to someone else, your body will stop breaking. You can heal. You can live a normal life. No, Izuku said. Izuku, please listen to reason. No! Izuku screamed it. The monitors flared red. A spark of green electricity jumped from his shoulder, popping a light bulb overhead. Glass rained down on the linoleum. Recovery girl gasped. Midoriya, calm down. Your blood pressure. I won't give it back. Izuku was crying now, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. I've wanted this my whole life. I've been quirkless. I've been nothing. You said I could be a hero. You said it. I said you could be a hero, not a martyr. Toshinori yelled back, tears streaming down his own face. I don't want to watch you kill yourself by degrees, then teach me. Izuku grabbed the bedsheets with his good hand, clutching them until his knuckles turned white. Don't take it away. Teach me how to stop the leak. Teach me how to hold the cup together. The cup is too small. Toshinori wept. Then I'll make a lid. Izuku shouted breathless, his chest heaving. I don't care if I break. I don't care if I have to live in a hospital. I am here. I am the holder. You can't take it back just because it's hard. You didn't pick me because I was strong. You picked me because I moved when nobody else did. Well, I'm not moving now. I'm staying right here. The silence that followed was broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the backup monitor. Toshinori stared at the boy. He saw the fire in those green eyes. It was the same fire he had seen on the beach when Izuku charged the sludge villain. It was the fire of a madness that bordered on greatness. Toshinori slumped into the visitor's chair, burying his face in his hands. He sobbed, a deep, racking sound. You are so stubborn, he muffled through his fingers. I learned from the best, Izuku panted, wiping his eyes. Recovery girl watched the exchange. She tapped her cane on the floor, a sharp crack. Are you two quite finished with the melodrama? She asked, though her voice was softer now. Toshinori looked up, eyes red. Izuku looked at her. If you are keeping the quirk, Recovery girl said, looking at Izuku sternly, then the rules change. Everything changes. The training plan you had? Burn it. It's useless. She rolled her chair over to a whiteboard on the wall. She uncapped a marker. Problem 1, the leak, she wrote. Your body is porous to the energy. We cannot seal it physically, so you must seal it mentally. You need to learn constant, low-level containment. Not 5%. Not 1%. We are talking about 0.1%. Just enough to create a skin of energy to hold the rest in. Problem 2, the glass cannon, she wrote. You cannot punch. If you punch anything with more than 5% power, your arm will shatter again. And because your bones are already compromised from the leak, they will not heal as strong next time. She turned to them. You have 7 months until the UA entrance exam, she said. You will not be spending them lifting fridges on a beach. You will be spending them in meditation, in physical therapy, and in studying anatomy. She pointed the marker at Izuku like a knife. You want to be a hero, Midoriya? Fine. But you won't be All Might. You can't be. All Might is a tank. You. She looked him up and down. You are a grenade with a loose pin. You don't win by overpowering. You win by being the smartest person in the room so you don't have to explode. Izuku nodded slowly. I understand. Good, she said. Now dry your tears. Your mother is here. Izuku froze. Mom? She's in the waiting room. Tsukachi told her it was a villain attack involved with a gas main explosion. She doesn't know about One for All. And she cannot know. Toshinori stood up, wiping his face, composing himself into a semblance of authority. I will handle the explanation. I will tell her I have taken a personal interest in your recovery. All Might, Izuku said, stopping him. Don't tell her I'll be okay. Toshinori paused. Why? Because she'll know you're lying. Just tell her I'm alive. Inko Midoriya was a woman defined by her anxiety. It was her quirk, in a way, the ability to attract worry from small objects and people nearby. When she saw Izuku lying in the bed, encased in casts and wires, she didn't scream. She went silent. She walked to the bedside, her hands trembling, and she just touched his cheek. Izuku, she whispered. Hi, Mom, he rasped. The detective said, he said a villain. She couldn't finish the sentence. She looked at his arm. Oh, my baby. My baby. Then came the tears. A fountain of them. She hugged him as gently as she could, burying her face in his neck. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I should have been there. I should have protected you. It's okay, Mom. I'm okay. You're not okay. She wailed, pulling back to look at him. Look at you. You're broken. Toshinori stood in the corner, feeling like an intruder in a sacred space. He cleared his throat. Mrs. Midoriya, he said softly. Inko turned, seeing the skeletal man for the first time. She blinked through her tears. Who are you? I am Yagi, Toshinori said, bowing deeply. I am a representative of All Might's agency. I was on the scene shortly after the incident. Inko's eyes widened. All Might's agency? Yes. Your son, he showed incredible bravery. He attempted to assist the heroes in evacuating civilians. He was injured in the process. It was a lie, but a kind one. Bravery? Inko looked back at Izuku. Her face twisted with a mix of pride and terror. He's quirkless. He shouldn't be brave. He should be safe. Toshinori flinched. Yes. Ideally. But, because of his actions, lives were saved. And because of that, my agency wishes to sponsor his recovery. All medical bills, all rehabilitation, we will cover it. We want to ensure he has the best care. Inko looked at the man, then at Izuku. She saw the look in her son's eyes. It was a look she hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the defeated, sad look of the quirkless boy. It was the fierce, determined look of the toddler who used to watch the All Might video on loop. Izuku, she said softly. Do you still want to do it? Do what, Mom? Yue. The hero course. Izuku swallowed. His body ached. His arm was destroyed. He was leaking energy that might kill him. Yes, he said. More than anything. Inko closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She gripped his hand, the uninjured one. I want to say no, she whispered. I want to take you home and wrap you in bubble wrap and never let you leave the house. I want to forbid it. Mom. But she opened her eyes. You looked so sad for so long. And now, even hurt, you don't look sad. She kissed his forehead. If this Mr. Yagi is going to help you get better, then I won't stop you. But you have to promise me one thing. Anything. Come home, she said fiercely. Whatever you do, you come home. I promise, Izuku said. Toshinori watched them, his heart aching. He had made a promise too, silently to himself. I will make him strong enough to keep that promise. Even if it kills me. 2 weeks later, the private wing of the hospital had become Izuku's world. He hadn't left the room. He couldn't. Every time he tried to stand up for more than 10 minutes, the tremors started. The leak was a constant companion, a low-level hum in his nervous system that spiked whenever he got emotional or exerted himself. He sat cross-legged on the bed, eyes closed. Focus, Gran Torino's voice echoed in his memory, though he hadn't met the man yet. This was purely instinct, guided by Toshinori's clumsy instructions. Visualize the egg in the microwave, Toshinori had said. No, Izuku thought. That doesn't work. The microwave explodes the egg. I don't want to explode. He visualized a dam. A massive, concrete dam holding back a glowing ocean. The dam was his body. The ocean was one for all. Currently, the dam was riddled with cracks. Water was spurting out in high-pressure jets, eroding the stone. I can't build a new dam, he thought. I have to patch the cracks. He imagined taking golden tape, mental fortitude, and slapping it over the leaks. Seal the left arm. Seal the ribs. Seal the legs, he breathed in. The humming noise in the room quieted slightly. The monitors, which usually flickered, steadied. Better, a voice said. Izuku opened his eyes. All Might was standing there, holding a stack of books. He visited every day, bringing food, homework, and guilt. I held it for 10 seconds, Izuku said, wiping sweat from his brow. 7 seconds, All Might corrected gently. But it was a stable 7 seconds. He dropped the books on the bed. Advanced Kinesiology, Structural Engineering, Quark Theory Volume 4. Recovery Girl's Reading List, All Might said. She says if you're going to pilot a broken mech, you need to know how the gears work. Izuku picked up Structural Engineering. She wants me to treat my bones like girders? She wants you to understand load-bearing limits, All Might said. He sat down. How is the arm? Izuku looked at his left arm. The cast was off now, replaced by a heavy-duty compression sleeve that looked more like armor. Underneath, the skin was scarred, a web of pink and white tissue. He could move his fingers, but the grip strength was barely half of what it used to be. The doctors said the nerves were permanently sensitized. It aches, Izuku admitted. It feels cold. Like the power doesn't want to go there because the path is blocked. You may have to rely on your right side for power output, All Might mused. And your legs? I was thinking. Izuku hesitated. I can't punch, right? If I punch, the impact force travels back up the arm and shatters the healing bone. Correct. But what if I don't punch to hit? What if I punch to push air? All Might raised an eyebrow. Air pressure? Like my smash? Yeah. But scaled down. If I just flick my fingers. Izuku held up his right hand. He rested his thumb against his middle finger. If I concentrate 100% just at the tip of the finger, and release it in a snap, the energy leaves the body before the recoil can destroy the arm. It would just break the finger. All Might looked horrified. Young Midoriya, are you suggesting a fighting style where you systematically break your own fingers to create projectiles? Izuku shrugged, a dark humor entering his eyes. Better a finger than an arm. And I have 10 of them. All Might sighed, rubbing his temples. This is not what I had in mind when I said go beyond. It's what I have, Izuku said firmly. I have 7 months to figure out how to pass the exam without killing myself. If I have to break a few fingers to save the rest of me, I'll do it. He looked out the window, or rather, the screen displaying a fake window view. I'm not going to be the symbol of peace, All Might. Not like you. No, All Might agreed softly. You won't. I'm going to be something else, Izuku said. He looked at his scarred hand, and for a second, the green lightning flickered, not chaotic, but rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. I'm going to be the guy who survives. 7 months later, the day of the UA entrance exam, the gates of UA High School were imposing. They were designed to intimidate. Izuku stood before them. He looked different than he had 10 months ago. He wasn't the beefcake All Might had originally planned for. He was lean, almost wiry. He wore compression garments under his tracksuit, black, tight sleeves on both arms and legs, designed by a specialist to provide external pressure to his muscles. He wore thick, padded gloves. He breathed in. Hold the dam. Patch the cracks. The humming in his bones was there, but it was a quiet murmur now, not a scream. He had learned to live with the constant, low-level pain. It was just background noise. Out of the way, Deku. The voice was rough, familiar. Katsuki Bakugo walked past him. He paused, looking Izuku up and down. Bakugo frowned. He sniffed the air, like an animal detecting a sickness. You look like hell, Bakugo grunted. You sick or something? You got skinny. I've been working out differently, Izuku said, his voice steady. Bakugo scoffed. Whatever. Just don't die during the practical. I don't want your ghost haunting me. He shoulder-checked Izuku and kept walking. Izuku didn't flinch. In the past, he would have panicked. But after facing Dredge, after spending weeks in a hospital bed wondering if his heart would stop, Bakugo's aggression felt manageable. Izuku looked up at the glass towers of the school. The vessel is fractured, he thought, repeating the mantra Recovery Girl had drilled into him. The cup leaks. But a broken cup can still hold water if you freeze it. He clenched his fists. A tiny, microscopic spark of green jumped between his knuckles. I am here. He took the first step. The path to heroism wasn't a sprint anymore. It was a minefield. And Izuku Midoriya had just stepped onto the grass. 4 months before the exam. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park, restricted area. The ocean breeze was no longer refreshing. To Izuku Midoriya, it felt like sandpaper against his skin. Every sensation was amplified. The fabric of his shirt, the grit in his shoes, the temperature of the air, it all registered with a sharp, electric clarity that bordered on painful. Hold it, Gran Torino barked. Don't you dare drop it. The old hero, a blur of yellow and white even in his stillness, stood atop a concrete piling with a cane in hand. He wasn't looking at Izuku's face. He was looking at Izuku's hand. Izuku was balancing a single, raw egg on the back of his hand. It sounded simple. It was torture. The hum is getting louder, boy, Torino warned, his ears twitching. Dampen the noise. Izuku gritted his teeth. He wasn't just standing there. He was channeling One for All. Since the incident with Dredge, the quirk didn't sleep. It was a restless, prowling tiger trapped in a cage made of balsa wood. If Izuku relaxed his mental grip for even a second, the energy would surge, seeking an exit. It would manifest as a tremor, a spark, or a microfracture in his radius. The goal wasn't to use the power. The goal was to exist with it without breaking the egg. 0.1%, Izuku chanted in his mind. Not a river. A trickle. Just enough to reinforce the skin. Just enough to keep the pressure equalized. A bead of sweat rolled down his nose. It tickled. Don't flinch. The energy inside him surged. It felt like a bubble of air moving through his bloodstream. It hit his wrist. Crack. The egg didn't fall. It exploded. A tiny, microscopic shockwave emitted from Izuku's pores, vaporizing the shell and sending yolks splattering onto the sand. Damn it! Izuku gasped, clutching his wrist. The recoil stung like a bee sting deep in the marrow. Too slow. Gran Torino hopped down, whacking Izuku's shin with his cane. You reacted to the surge instead of anticipating it. You're chasing the power, kid. You have to lead it. Izuku fell to his knees, breathing hard. His left arm, encased in the heavy black compression sleeve he now wore 24/7, throbbed with a phantom ache. I can't feel the start of it, Izuku wheezed. It just spikes. It's like it hates being contained. Of course it hates it. Torino scoffed. It's the accumulated power of 8 desperate people who spent their lives fighting a demon. It wants to fight. You're telling a hurricane to sit in a teacup. All Might, who had been watching from the sidelines with a look of perpetual indigestion, stepped forward. He held a water bottle, his hands shaking slightly. Maybe we should take a break, Sorahiko, All Might suggested meekly. His heart rate is elevated. His heart rate is always elevated. Torino snapped. If he rests now, he learns that failure earns him a break. Failure earns you nothing but death. The exam is in 4 months. Do you want him to explode on national television? Izuku looked up. His eyes were dark, rimmed with exhaustion, but the green irises burned with a scary intensity. One more, Izuku said. He reached into the carton of eggs sitting in the cooler. Give me another one, Izuku. All Might started. I have to find the floor, Izuku muttered, more to himself than them. Recovery Girl said I have to find the floor of the power. The minimum output required to keep the vessel pressurized without rupturing. He placed a fresh egg on his hand. He closed his eyes. He didn't visualize a microwave. He visualized a submarine deep underwater. The pressure outside was crushing. He had to push back just enough to keep the hull from crumpling, but not so much that he blew the rivets. Hum. The sound was in his ears. The low-frequency vibration of One for All. Quiet, he commanded. Be water. Be still water. The egg wobbled then steadied. A faint, almost invisible green aura coated his skin, thinner than a sheet of paper. Better, Torino whispered. Hold it. Don't let it ripple. Izuku held it. For 1 minute. 2 minutes. The pain in his bones was a dull roar, but the egg remained whole. The morning of the exam, the mirror in the bathroom reflected a stranger. Izuku Midori adjusted the collar of his middle school uniform, the Gakurin, trying to hide the bulk of the gear underneath. He wasn't the scrawny kid from 10 months ago. He was lean, stripped of all excess fat, his muscles dense and ropey like twisted wire. But he looked fragile. His skin was pale, a side effect of the constant metabolic drain of the quirk. There were dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. He peeled back his sleeve. His left arm was wrapped in a black biomesh brace, a gift from the Shield Foundation that All Might had called in a favor for. It acted as an external exoskeleton, clamping his bones together so they wouldn't vibrate apart under stress. His right arm had a lighter version, a simple compression sleeve. His legs were taped. Heavy sports tape wrapped his ankles, shins, and knees. He opened the medicine cabinet and took out a small orange pill bottle. Bone density supplements. High-grade calcium. Pain blockers. He dry swallowed 3 pills. Izuku? His mother's voice came from the hallway. Are you ready? You'll be late. Izuku took a deep breath. Containment check. He felt the power inside him. It was a sleeping dragon today. Or maybe it was just waiting. I'm coming, Mom! He walked out. Inko Midoriya was wringing her hands, her eyes scanning him for any new bandages. You have your lunch? Your support bracing tool kit? I have everything. She fixed his collar, her fingers brushing the scar tissue on his neck, a remnant of the backlash from a training accident 2 months ago. She flinched. You don't have to do this, she whispered. You can still go to a normal high school. You're so smart, Izuku. You could be a doctor. An analyst. I have to go, Izuku said gently. He took her hands. I promise, I'll be careful. I'm not going there to fight. I'm going there to pass. He didn't tell her that passing might require fighting. And fighting might require breaking. He walked out the door. The sun was blinding. Yue High School gates. The crowd was massive. Hundreds of students, buzzing with nervous energy, funneling toward the towering glass structures of Yue. Izuku walked slowly. He couldn't afford to be jostled. A sudden impact could disrupt his concentration, causing a leak, a discharge of power that might hurt someone or shatter his own collarbone. He moved like an old man, deliberate and cautious. Out of the way, Deku. Izuku stiffened. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The smell of nitroglycerin preceded him. Katsuki Bakugo stomped past, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched aggressively. He stopped, glancing back over his shoulder. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. He looked at Izuku, really looked at him. He saw the way Izuku held himself, the slight tremor in his left hand, the way his uniform bunched over the hidden braces. You look like a walking corpse, Bakugo sneered. But the usual fire wasn't there. It was replaced by a strange, unsettled confusion. You sick or something? I'm fine, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice flat. TCH, whatever. Just don't collapse in the hallway. It'd be embarrassing for me if my rival died of a stiff breeze. Bakugo walked away. He didn't tell Izuku to go home. He didn't threaten to blast him. It was almost worse. Bakugo looked at him not as an obstacle, but as a pity case. Izuku clenched his fist. A sharp pain shot up his wrist. He unclenched it immediately. Focus. Ignore him. He took a step forward and immediately caught the toe of his shoe on a loose paving stone. His balance, compromised by the constant internal effort of holding the quirk, failed him. He tipped forward. I'm going to fall. I can't catch myself with my hands. If I impact the concrete with my wrists under tension, I'll fracture the scaphoid. He prepared to tuck and roll, to take the hit on his shoulder. Suddenly, he stopped. He was floating. Are you okay? Izuku blinked. He was hovering 2 inches off the ground. A girl with a round face and brown bobbed hair was standing next to him, her hand hovering over his backpack. I used my quirk on you, she said brightly, tapping her fingertips together to release him. Izuku landed gently. He exhaled, his heart rate spiking. Thank you, he stammered. I have bad balance. It's okay. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it? She smiled, and it was blinding. I'm Uraraka Ochako. Good luck in there. Let's do our best. She waved and ran off toward the entrance. Izuku stood there for a moment, staring at his hands. He hadn't stuttered because he was shy. He had stuttered because for a second, when she touched him, her gravity manipulation had interacted with the density of One for All, and he had felt a wave of nausea so intense he almost vomited. Variable added, he muttered, pulling a small notebook from his pocket. Zero gravity reduces internal pressure? Investigate later. The written exam. This was the easy part. Izuku sat in the lecture hall, his pencil moving across the paper at a furious pace. English. Math. Japanese history. Hero law. He didn't just know the answers, he devoured them. For the last 6 months, while he couldn't lift weights, he had lifted books. He had memorized the entire UE syllabus back to 1998. Question 42. Analyze the structural liability of a quirk usage in a dense urban environment with Class 4 zoning. Izuku wrote the answer, citing 3 separate court cases and the physics of collateral damage. He finished 20 minutes early. He sat in silence, meditating, listening to the hum of the power in his blood. Hold the dam. The practical exam orientation. Everybody say hey. Present Mick's voice boomed through the auditorium speakers. Izuku winced, covering his ears. The sonic vibrations were rattling his teeth. Can you shut up? Bakugo muttered from 2 seats over. Izuku stared at the handout. Robots. 3 types. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Destroy them to earn a score. Izuku's stomach dropped. Destroy. The word echoed in his head. How? He couldn't punch them. A 100% punch would destroy a robot, yes, but it would destroy his arm. He would be out of the exam after 1 swing. He couldn't use 5% to punch. His bones were too brittle from the leak. A 5% punch against steel would result in a broken hand, and the robot might just dent. He looked at the silhouette of the robots on the screen. They have joints. They have wires. They have off switches. He wasn't a hammer anymore. He had to be a scalpel. And finally, President Mike shouted. The 0-pointer. A gimmick. An obstacle. If you see it, run away. Run away. I can do that. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were massive. The other examinees were stretching, psyching themselves up. Some were manifesting quirks, engines revving, lasers charging, skin turning to rock. Izuku stood in the back. He tightened the straps on his arm braces. He checked the soles of his iron-soled boots, support gear designed to add impact to his kicks since his legs were stronger than his arms. Hey, look at that guy, a boy with a sharp nose whispered. Is he wearing medical gear? He looks like he escaped from the ICU, another laughed. What's he gonna do, bleed on the robots? Izuku ignored them. He was mapping the city in his head. Narrow alleys. Fire escapes. High ground. Robots will spawn in clusters. Start. President Mick's voice came from the tower. There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The crowd surged forward. A stampede of quirks. Izuku didn't sprint. He couldn't. He broke into a rhythmic, loping jog, keeping his center of gravity low. 0.5%. Activate. The green lightning flickered across his skin, barely visible in the sunlight. His perception sharpened. The world slowed down slightly. He entered the city. Immediately, chaos. Explosions. Debris flying. A 3-pointer, a massive tank-like drone, rolled around the corner. Target acquired. It beeped. A boy with lasers shot it through the chest. 3 points. Izuku kept moving. He couldn't compete for the easy kills. He had to be a scavenger. He turned down an alleyway. Silence. Clickware. A 1-pointer. A fast-wheeled drone. It spotted him. Target. It lunged, a mechanical arm swinging for his head. Izuku didn't block. He dropped. Using the slight speed boost from the 0.5% cowling, he slid under the robot's swing. He wasn't fast enough to be a blur, but he was faster than the robot's hydraulic reaction time. He rolled to his feet behind it. Weak point. Neck cabling. He didn't punch. He grabbed the exposed bundle of wires at the base of the robot's head. Pull. He channeled a pulse, a 2% spike, just into his grip's strength. Snap. He ripped the cabling out. The robot spasmed, its eye flickering out. It slumped over. 1 point, Izuku whispered. He was panting. His fingers throbbed. Too slow. I need 40 points to be safe. At this rate I'll run out of time. He heard fighting in the next street. He climbed the fire escape, jumping 2 steps at a time. The impact on his knees was jarring, but the braces held. From the roof, he saw the battlefield. It was a mess. He saw a 2-pointer cornering a student whose quirk seemed to be shooting tape. The student was reloading. Izuku didn't engage the robot. He looked above it. There was a suspended I-beam on a construction site facade, hanging by a rusted chain. Izuku picked up a loose brick from the roof. Trajectory calculation. Wind speed is negligible. He channeled 3% into his right arm. He felt the bone creak. Throw. He whipped the brick. It flew like a bullet. It didn't hit the robot. It hit the rusted link of the chain holding the I-beam. Clang! The link shattered. Gravity took over. The I-beam fell, crushing the two-pointer flat. The tape student stared. Whoa! Thanks. 2 points, Izuku muttered, clutching his throwing arm. The muscle felt strained. 37 to go. The observation room. The screens lined the wall, showing hundreds of camera angles. The teachers of UA watched with practiced eyes. This year's crop is aggressive, Midnight commented. Lots of flashy emitters. Power is good, Cementos rumbled. But control is better. What about this one? Snipe pointed to a screen in the corner. Student 2234. Midoriya. On the screen, Izuku was currently dismantling a three-pointer not by fighting it, but by jamming a metal pipe into its tread mechanism, causing it to trip and crash into a wall, shattering its own sensor array. He hasn't thrown a single punch, Snipe noted. He's fighting like a gorilla. Sabotage. Environmental hazards. Traps. He looks painful, Midnight said, frowning. Look at the way he holds his arm. He moves like he's in constant agony. Eraserhead, standing in the back with his arms crossed, narrowed his eyes. He's a liability, Aizawa said flatly. Oh? Mizu, the principal, turned his chair. Do explain, Aizawa. He has a powerful quirk. I can see the energy discharge every time he moves. But his body can't take it. He's operating at less than 1% of his potential because he knows if he goes higher, he'll break. He's a glass cannon that's afraid to fire. Or, Niza smiled, sipping his tea, he is a candidate who understands his limitations perfectly and is adapting his strategy to match. That is a rare quality. Most children simply smash until they hit a wall. This boy is climbing over the wall. He has 28 points, President Mike noted. He's barely passing. And he's running out of stamina. Look, he's limping. On the screen, Izuku leaned against the wall, clutching his chest. Let's see how he handles true despair, Niza said. His paw hovered over a large red button. Click. Battle Center B. The ground shook. It wasn't a rumble. It was an earthquake. Pavement cracked. Windows shattered. Izuku fell to one knee. What? From the central plaza, a shadow eclipsed the sun. The zero-pointer. It was bigger than in the anime. It was a moving skyscraper. Its green chassis was the size of a city block. It punched a building, and the building simply crumbled into dust. Dust billowed out, choking the street. Run! Someone screamed. The students turned and fled. It was a stampede. Izuku stood up, coughing. The fear was primal. His legs wanted to move. His brain screamed at him to run. Run! You have 28 points. Maybe it's enough. Maybe rescue points will count? No, I don't know that. I need to survive. He turned to run. Oh wow! The cry was faint, buried under the sound of collapsing masonry. Izuku froze. He looked back. Through the dust, near the foot of the advancing titan, Uraraka. She was pinned. A massive slab of concrete had fallen on her legs. She was struggling, but she was stuck. The zero-pointer was directly above her. Its massive tread was descending. 10 seconds. Maybe less. Izuku looked at the fleeing students. Help! Someone help her! Nobody heard him. Or if they did, they were too terrified to stop. Izuku looked at Uraraka. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was looking up at the metal treads with wide, tear-filled eyes. Acceptance. The vessel is cracked. Izuku's heart stopped. The cup is leaking. He looked at his legs. His taped, braced, trembling legs. If I use it, I break. If I don't use it, she dies. It wasn't a choice. It was never a choice. Izuku turned. He didn't run. He launched. One for all! He screamed internally. He abandoned the 0.5% limit. He abandoned the safety dam. He opened the floodgates. Not to 100%. That would kill him instantly. 5%? No. Not enough height. 10%. He channeled 10% of the stockpile into his legs. The pain was immediate and blinding. His femur bowed. The muscles tore. The concrete beneath his feet vaporized. Boom! He rocketed into the air. He moved so fast the wind tore the tears from his eyes. He soared past the robot's head height. He was floating in the air, level with the zero-pointer's face. The robot's sensors locked onto him. Izuku looked at his right fist. If he punched it, the shockwave would shatter his shoulder, his ribs, and probably his neck due to the recoil in midair. I can't punch. He looked at his legs. His right leg was already fractured from the jump. The adrenaline was masking the pain, but the structure was compromised. I have to sacrifice the limb. He spun in the air. A torque-based motion. He channeled power. Not 10%. Go beyond. He pushed it. The red veins erupted on his skin, glowing through the black compression gear. 20%? 30%? It was too much. He felt his right leg bones splinter before he even made contact. Smash! He swung his leg in a devastating axe kick, aiming for the robot's central processor unit. The impact was deafening. Metal crumpled like tin foil. The shockwave blew the glass out of every window in a 3-block radius. The massive head of the zero-pointer caved in, shearing off its neck. The robot tilted backward, explosions rippling through its chassis. Izuku hung in the air for a split second, a silhouette against the sun. Then gravity remembered him. He fell, and the pain arrived. A wag. His right leg was wrong. It was twisted at the knee, dangling loosely. The pants leg was shredded. He was falling from 20 stories up. I have no limbs left. I can't land. He tried to summon a smash with his arms to cushion the fall, but his body seized. The shock of the kick had short-circuited his nervous system. The leak was going wild, electrocuting him from the inside. I'm going to die. Slap. A hand touched his cheek. He stopped falling. He floated, spinning gently inches from the ground. Release. Uraraka, lying in the rubble, pressed her fingertips together. Izuku dropped the final inch. He hit the ground. He didn't get up. He curled into a ball, clutching his destroyed leg. He didn't scream anymore. He just made a high-pitched, wheezing sound. His vision was going white. Time's up. President Mike shouted. Silence fell over the battle center, then footsteps. Rushing. Hey! Are you okay? Did you see that? He took out the zero-pointer. Dude, look at his leg. Oh God. Don't look. Turn away. Izuku stared at the sky. It was so blue. I did it, he thought, his mind fuzzy. I saved her. Then, a shadow fell over him. Move aside. Coming through, recovery girl. She pushed through the crowd of students. When she saw Izuku, her face went pale. You idiot, she whispered, kneeling beside him. You absolute, suicidal idiot. She touched his forehead. Her lips elongated. Smooch. The drain on his stamina was instant. Izuku felt the last of his energy vanish. Rest, she commanded. The world went black. 1 week later, Izuku sat on the couch in his living room. His right leg was in a heavy cast, propped up on pillows. He had crutches leaning against the wall. He stared at the envelope on the table. Yue High School. His mother was in the kitchen, pretending to make tea, but he could hear her crying softly. He hadn't told her the details. Just that he tripped during the exam and the safety measures failed. A lie. A terrible one. He reached out with his trembling hand. He opened the envelope. A holographic disc fell out. It flickered to life. I am here. All Might appeared on the projection. He was wearing a yellow suit. He looked tired. Young Midoriya. All Might boomed. It has been a week. I apologize for not contacting you. I have been debating with the staff. Izuku's heart sank. Debating? You scored 28 villain points, All Might said. By the standard metric you failed. The cutoff was 35. Izuku closed his eyes. I knew it. But... All Might raised a finger. A hero course that rejects those who save others is a sham. The entrance exam is not just about destruction. It is about heart. The screen changed. It showed the video of Uraraka. He saved me. She was pleading with President Mike in the video. Please. Give him my points. He destroyed his leg to save me. Izuku choked back a sob. Rescue points. All Might shouted. A hidden metric. For your selfless jump into danger, despite your obvious injuries. Yui awards you 45 rescue points. Total score, 73 points. You pass. Izuku let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for a week. However, All Might's voice dropped. The projection zoomed in. All Might wasn't smiling anymore. He looked serious. There are conditions, young Midoriya. Izuku froze. The staff is concerned. Your quirk usage is self-destructive. Recovery Girl has filed a report. Eraserhead has filed a grievance. You are accepted into Class 1A. But you are on probation from day 1. If the teachers deem your presence to be a liability to your own life or others, you will be transferred to General Studies, or expelled. All Might leaned into the camera. You made it in, my boy. But the door is barely open. You have to walk through it without tripping. Welcome to your Hero Academia. The hologram faded. Izuku looked at his broken leg. He looked at the scarred arm. He was in. But he was already marked. He wasn't the prodigy. He wasn't the rising star. He was the problem child. The glass cannon. Izuku picked up his crutch. He stood up, wincing as the blood rushed to his foot. I'm in, he whispered to the empty room. He clenched his fist. The green lightning hummed, low and dangerous. Now I just have to survive the first day. The first day. The halls of UA High School were wide. They had to be. They were designed to accommodate students with gigantification quirks, mutation quirks, and oversized support gear. For Izuku Midoriya, the width was a blessing for a different reason. It meant he had room to maneuver his leg, thump, whir, drag. The sound was rhythmic and mechanical. Izuku walked down the 1A corridor. He wasn't wearing the standard uniform shoes. On his right foot, he wore a heavy, pneumatic walking boot. It was a bulky piece of medical technology, stark white against the gray linoleum, designed to take the weight off his healing tibia and fibula. Every step was a calculation. Lift hip. Swing leg. Plant heel. Engage servo assist. He felt eyes on him. Students from other classes, general studies, support, business, paused their conversations to stare. Is that him? The guy who fought the zero-pointer? He looks like he got hit by a truck. I heard he exploded his own leg. Why is he even here? Izuku kept his head down, staring at the floor. The hum of One for All was buzzing in his ears, a low-frequency static that spiked every time he felt a pang of anxiety. Which was constantly. He reached a massive door labeled 1A. It towered over him. This is it, he thought. The hero course. I made it. He reached out to open the door, but paused. His hand was trembling. Not from fear, but from the nerve damage in his left arm. The black compression sleeve he wore under his uniform was tight, squeezing the scar tissue, but the phantom sparks of electricity still danced along his radial nerve. Don't leak, he commanded himself. Keep the dam sealed. He pushed the door open. The classroom was loud. Don't put your feet on the desk. Ha! Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. Sama? So you're an elite stuck-up. I'll enjoy crushing you. Izuku winced. The volume was physically painful. His sensory processing was still haywire from the quirk overload. Katsuki Bakugo was sitting with his feet on the desk, looking like a king on a throne of gunpowder. Ida was chopping the air in front of him. Then, they noticed the door open. The room went silent. Bakugo's eyes snapped to Izuku. They widened, then narrowed. He looked at the walking boot. He looked at the way Izuku leaned against the doorframe for support. Deku, Bakugo growled. It wasn't a scream. It was a low, confused rumble. Ida spun around. Ah. You are. He marched toward Izuku. The student from the entrance exam. Midoriya, correct? Ida stopped 3 feet away. He looked at Izuku's leg, then bowed deeply, a perfect 90-degree angle. I misjudged you. Ida announced, his voice booming. I thought you were simply reckless during the presentation. But you realized the true nature of the test, the rescue component. Before anyone else, you sacrificed your own body to save another. I hate to admit it, but you are a better candidate than I. Izuku waved his hands frantically. No. I didn't realize anything. My body just moved. That is the essence of a hero. Ida insisted. Oh. It's you. A bright voice cut through the tension. Ochako Uraraka appeared behind Ida, beaming. Midoriya-kun! You're here! She looked at his boot. Oh wow, that looks heavy. Is your leg okay? Recovery girl healed it, right? Sort of, Izuku said, scratching his cheek nervously. The bone is knit, but the structural integrity is still low. I have to wear the boot for another 2 weeks to prevent microfractures from walking. Microfractures from walking? A boy with red spiky hair, Kirishima, leaned in. Dude, that's hardcore. You go that hard just walking to class? If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in the doorway, wrapped in a bright yellow sleeping bag like a lethargic caterpillar, was a man. He looked exhausted. His hair was black and messy, his eyes bloodshot and dry. He held a juice pouch in his mouth. He unzipped the bag and stood up. He wasn't wearing a hero costume. He was wearing black fatigues and a capture scarf. He stared at the class with bored indifference. Then, his gaze landed on Izuku. The boredom vanished. Shota Aizawa's eyes sharpened. He looked at the boot. He looked at the way Izuku favored his left side. He looked at the faint, almost imperceptible tremor in Izuku's hands. He didn't look impressed. He looked annoyed. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, Aizawa said, stepping into the room. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. He walked to the podium. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Homeroom teacher? The class gasped. Aizawa didn't waste time. He reached under the podium and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. He tossed the stack to the front row. Then, he picked up a single uniform. He walked over to Izuku. He didn't hand it to him. He tossed it at Izuku's chest. Izuku fumbled to catch it. His reflexes were fast, enhanced by the quirk, but his coordination was off. He caught the shirt, but the pants slipped through his stiff fingers and hit the floor. Aizawa watched him struggle to bend down and pick them up with the heavy boot. If you can't get dressed in the locker room in 5 minutes, Aizawa said, his voice low enough that only Izuku could hear, don't bother coming out to the field. Just go home. Izuku froze, gripping the fabric. He looked up. Aizawa's eyes were cold, dark pits. I'll be there, Izuku whispered. Aizawa turned and walked out. Don't dawdle. The boys' locker room. The atmosphere was electric with excitement. The boys of Class 1A were stripping off their school uniforms, checking out the gear, and introducing themselves. I'm Kirishima. My quirk is hardening. Siro. Tape. Aoyama. I twinkle. Izuku sat on the bench in the corner. He had to sit to change. Balancing on one leg to take off pants was impossible with the boot. He unbuttoned his shirt. The chatter in the room died down, rippling into silence from the corner outward. Izuku pulled his shirt off. Whoa, Kirishima whispered. Izuku wasn't scrawny. He was ripped. But it wasn't the aesthetic muscle of a bodybuilder. It was the functional, desperate muscle of someone who had forced their body to evolve too quickly. But it was the scars that drew the eyes. His left arm was encased in the black medical sleeve, but where the sleeve ended at the shoulder, angry red lines webbed across his deltoid and pectoral muscle. They looked like lightning strikes frozen in flesh. His ribs were taped with kinesiology tape, but bruises, deep, yellow and purple, bloomed around the edges. And his right leg, as he unstrapped the boot and peeled off the compression sock, the boys saw the surgical scars running down his shin where the bones had been pinned. Dude, Kaminari said, his voice lacking its usual playfulness. What happened to you? Izuku pulled the gym shirt on quickly, hiding the damage. Training accident. And the entrance exam. That was just from the exam? Ojiro asked, his tail twitching nervously. I thought Recovery Girl could fix anything. She can fix injuries, Izuku said quietly, pulling on his track pants. She can't fix incompatibility. Incompatibility? Tokoimi asked from the shadows. A vessel at war with its own spirit? Izuku paused. Something like that. Mineta, who was struggling to put on his pants, stared at Izuku with fear. You look like you got mangled by a villain. Are you sure you should be doing pee? I have to, Izuku said. He grabbed the boot and strapped it back on with practiced mechanical clicks. Click. Whir. Lock. He stood up. He swayed for a second, the hum spiking in his ear, before steadying himself. If I don't, Izuku said, staring at the locker door, I get expelled. He limped out of the room. Bakugo, who had been changing silently on the other side of the lockers, watched him go. He slammed his locker shut. The metal dented. Pea grounds. The sun was high and unforgiving. The class gathered on the dirt field. Aizawa stood with a tablet in his hand. He looked at the students, counting them. His eyes lingered on Izuku, who had made it within the time limit, sweating slightly from the exertion of rushing. A quirk apprehension test? Uraraka asked. What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such pleasantries, Aizawa deadpanned. Yuri is unrestrained in its traditions. That means I can run my class however I see fit. He held up a softball. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo walked to the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at Izuku for a split second before focusing on the field. Die! Boom! The explosion was massive. The ball rocketed into the sky, leaving a trail of smoke. Aizawa turned the tablet around. 705.2 meters. Whoa! That's awesome! Kaminari cheered. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This is gonna be fun. Ashido squealed. Aizawa's expression dropped. The air temperature seemed to plummet. Fun? He whispered. You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be fun? He smiled, a manic, terrifying expression. Right. Let's make it interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential. He brushed his hair back. And will be immediately expelled. Eh? The class erupted. You can't do that. Uraraka protested. It's the first day. That's unfair. Natural disasters are unfair, Aizawa retorted. Villain attacks are unfair. Catastrophic accidents are unfair. It is a hero's job to correct that unfairness. If you wanted to hang out at McDonald's after school, you came to the wrong place. He pointed a finger at the group. Welcome to the hero course. Izuku felt a cold sweat break out on his back. Last place gets expelled. He looked at his classmates. Ida with his engines. Bakugo with his explosions. Uraraka with gravity. Yaoyorozu creating cannons. He looked at his boot. He looked at his arm, which throbbed in time with his heartbeat. I can't run fast. I can't jump high. I can't use my quirk without breaking. I'm going to go home today. No. He clenched his right fist. I didn't eat that hair to give up. I didn't break my legs to go back to being a bystander. Recovery girl said I have to be smart. I have to find a way. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida and Ajri were up first. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Ajri, 5.58 seconds. Izuku watched. I need a plan. If I use 100% in my legs, I'll destroy the track and my legs. If I use nothing, I run a 7-second dash at best with this boot. I have to use the microburst. Gran Torino's voice echoed in his head. Don't flow. Pulse. Midoriya. Bakugo. They stepped to the line. Bakugo crouched low, smoke rising from his palms. Don't break your other leg, Deku. Izuku ignored him. He positioned his bad leg back, relying on the servo boot for the initial push. He focused on his good leg, the left one. Charged to 5%. Just for the kickoff. Start. Boom. Bakugo launched himself with explosions. Izuku triggered the quirk. Snap. The energy flooded his left leg. He kicked off the block. The force was immense. He shot forward like a bullet, keeping pace with Bakugo for the first 20 meters. But then came the problem. Stopping. Bakugo used explosions to brake. Izuku crossed the line. 4.15 seconds. He tried to slow down. But his left leg was trembling from the overload, and his right leg was a dead weight in the boot. He tripped. He slammed into the dirt, skidding for 10 meters. The impact jarred his ribs. Ow! Izuku groaned, rolling onto his back. Aizawa stared at the stopwatch. 4.15. But 0 braking control. If that was a rescue, you just crashed into the victim. Izuku picked himself up, dusting off the grit. His knee was bleeding through the tracksuit. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the dynamometer. If I squeeze with full cowl, I crush the machine. If I squeeze normally, I get 40 kilograms. He tried to pulse the energy into his forearm muscles. 2%. 3%. The machine creaked. 56 kilograms. Suddenly a spasm hit. The leak flared. His hand seized shut. Crack. The plastic casing of the dynamometer shattered. Ah! Izuku dropped it. The screen flickered. Error. Disqualified for equipment damage, Aizawa said, writing something down. You have no fine motor control. I'm sorry, Izuku stammered, holding his cramping hand. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku managed to clear the sandbox by using a small puff of wind pressure from his feet, but the landing was atrocious. He landed on the boot, lost balance, and fell backward into the sand. Fail, Aizawa noted. Test 4, repeated side steps. With the boot? Impossible. Izuku moved like a rusty robot. Mineta bounced past him like a rubber ball. Izuku was panting. His vision was swimming. The pain in his leg was becoming a searing heat. The hum was getting louder, turning into a scream in his ears. He looked at the scoreboard in his head. He was losing. Badly. Test 5, ball throw. This was it. The make or break. Uraraka threw the ball. She tapped it. It floated up, and didn't stop. Infinity, Aizawa announced. The class cheered. Midoriya. Izuku walked to the circle. His heart was hammering against his bruised ribs. I have to do something. I'm in last place. If I don't get a massive score here, the average will kill me. He picked up the ball. It felt heavy. He looked at Aizawa. The teacher was watching him with that same bored, predatory look. He expects me to fail. He expects me to give up. Izuku looked at his right arm. It was his good arm. The one without the exoskeleton. If I use 100%, I can clear 700 meters. Maybe more. But my arm breaks. Recovery girl said if I break another bone this month, she might not be able to fix the nerve damage. I could lose the use of my hand. But if I don't, I lose my dream. It was the same choice as the beach. The same choice as the robot. Sacrifice the body to save the soul. Izuku took a breath. He wound up. One for all. 100%. The red veins erupted on his skin. The lightning crackled, bright and violent. The power flooded his arm, feeling like magma. Smash! He threw. The ball left his hand. It traveled 46 meters. It hit the ground and rolled. What? Izuku blinked. His arm didn't hurt. The power had vanished right at the release point. He looked at his hands. Where did it go? I erased it. Izuku turned. Aizawa was standing there. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His eyes glowed red. The capture scarf was floating around him like a nest of snakes. That entrance exam was definitely not rational, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. Even a kid with a reckless quirk gets in if they punch hard enough. He walked toward Izuku. I saw the report. You can't control it. Every time you use it, you become a cripple. Aizawa stopped inches from Izuku's face. You intend to become incapacitated again? Were you hoping someone would step in to save you afterwards? No, Izuku argued, though his voice shook. I have to pass. By shattering your arm? Aizawa grabbed Izuku with his scarf, pulling him closer. That's not heroism. That's self-harm. If you break your arm to save one civilian, who saves the second civilian while you're screaming on the ground? Who saves you? Izuku flinched. The words cut deeper than any knife. You are a liability, Midoriya. You have a powerful engine in a chassis made of glass. If you drive it, you crash. If you don't drive it, you're useless. Aizawa's hair dropped. His eyes returned to black. I've returned your quirk. He turned around and walked back to the measurement line. You have 2 throws left. Hurry up and get it over with. Then go home. Izuku stood in the circle. The class was silent. Even Bakugo was quiet, watching with a strange intensity. He's gonna get expelled, someone whispered. Yeah. He's toast. Izuku looked at the ball. Aizawa is right. I can't be All Might. I can't be a tank. But I can't be nothing. He remembered the hospital. He remembered the conversation with All Might. What if I don't punch to hit? What if I punch to push air? Better a finger than an arm. Izuku picked up the ball. Focus. Not the whole arm. The dam has to hold. He visualized the power. It was a roaring ocean. Channel it. He pushed the energy through his shoulder. Don't let it settle. Through the elbow. Keep it moving. Through the wrist. He pulled it. All of it. The hurricane. The tornado. Into the tip of his right index finger. It hurt. Oh God, it hurt. The finger turned purple instantly under the pressure, the capillaries bursting before he even moved. Just one finger. He wound up. He threw the ball using normal mechanics, using his hips, his legs. At the very last second, as the ball rolled off his fingertips. Snap. He flicked. Smash. The sound was like a gunshot. A ring of air pressure exploded from his hand. The dust on the ground was blown away in a perfect circle. The ball disappeared. It broke the sound barrier. Boom! Izuku gasped. He clutched his right hand. His index finger was broken. It was swollen, purple, and bent at a sickly angle. But his arm was fine. No fractures. No nerve damage. He stood up straight, trembling from the adrenaline dump. He looked at Aizawa. Aizawa was looking at the tablet. His eyes widened, just a fraction. A flicker of surprise. He turned the screen to the class. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo? Kirishima shouted. Izuku panted, holding his broken finger close to his chest. He grinned. It wasn't a hero's smile. It was a desperate, pained, manic grin of survival. Sensei. Izuku wheezed. I can still move. Aizawa stared at him. He looked at the purple finger. He looked at the defiant, terrified eyes of the boy. He minimized the damage, Aizawa thought. He realized he couldn't handle the output, so he localized it to the smallest possible sacrificial point. It's irrational, and yet highly logical. Aizawa's lips curled up. A creepy smile. This kid. Suddenly, an explosion. DKU. Bakugo launched himself from the crowd. He was screaming. His hands were popping with nitroglycerin. What the hell was that? Tell me. You were quirkless. You were a pebble. How did you do that? He was fast. He was going to tackle Izuku. Izuku couldn't dodge. He flinched, raising his broken hand. Wish. The capture scarf snapped out. It wrapped around Bakugo, binding his arms and mouth. GHGG. Bakugo struggled. Stop it, Aizawa commanded, his hair floating again. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. He released Bakugo, who stumbled back, glaring daggers at Izuku. We're wasting time, Aizawa said. Next test. Sit-ups. He walked past Izuku. He didn't say good job. He didn't pat him on the back, but as he passed, he muttered, Get that finger taped up. It's disgusting. Izuku let out a breath. Yes, sir. The results. The sun was setting. The students gathered around the holographic display. Okay, here are the rankings, Aizawa said. I won't bother reading them out. Look for yourself. Izuku closed his eyes. Please. Not last. Just not last. He opened them. 1. Yairo Zumomo. 2. Todoroki Shoto. 3. Bakugo Katsuki. 18. Hagakure Toru. 19. Mineta Minoru. 20. Midoriya Izuku. Izuku stopped breathing. 20. Last place. He failed. He looked at the number. It was undeniable. His score in the ball throw was huge, but his scores and everything else were abysmal. The sprint, the jumps, the grip strength, they dragged him down. Mineta was crying tears of joy. I'm not last. I'm alive. Izuku felt the ground drop out from under him. The boot felt heavy. The finger throbbed. It's over. Aizawa clicked the screen off. By the way, he said, turning to walk away. The expulsion thing was a lie. Silence. Huh? The class screamed. It was a logical ruse, Aizawa said, not looking back. To draw out the upper limits of your potential. That was obvious, Yagirosa said, sighing. Did you guys really think he'd expel us? I was pretty scared. Kirishima yelled. Izuku stood there, frozen. His knees shook. He slumped, nearly falling over, catching himself on his crutch. I'm not expelled? Midoriya. Aizawa stopped. He turned his head. Go to the nurse's office. Have Chio fix that finger. Yes, yes, sir. And Midoriya? Izuku looked up. Aizawa's eyes were visible now. They weren't glowing. They were dark, tired, and incredibly serious. The ruse was for the others. If you hadn't thrown that ball over 700 meters, I absolutely would have expelled you. The air in the clearing vanished. You are a liability, Aizawa said coldly. You are reckless. Your body is a disaster area. You are the farthest thing from a pro hero I have ever seen in this course. He put his hands in his pockets. But you aren't Zero. You bought yourself a ticket to tomorrow. Don't waste it. Aizawa walked away, his scarf trailing behind him. Izuku watched him go. He looked at his hand. The finger was purple. It hurt like hell, but he was here. I'm here, he whispered. Midoriya! Uraraka ran over. That was amazing! You were so cool at the end. Scary, but cool. You really tricked us, huh? Ida adjusted his glasses. Although, Mr. Aizawa is quite terrifying, Izuku looked at them. He managed a weak, wobbly smile. Yeah. Terrifying. He began the long limp to the nurse's office. Day 1, survived. Cost 1 finger. Remaining 9 fingers. 7 toes accessible. And a whole lot of bones. The hum of one for all settled down, purring in his chest like a cat that had just been fed. It was going to be a long year. Recovery girl's office. You broke a finger. Recovery girl spun around in her chair. She didn't look happy. I minimized it, Izuku said, holding out the digit. Minimized it? She scoffed. She grabbed his hand, examining the break. Well, it's a clean break. Better than the powder you usually bring me. She kissed the finger. Smooch. Izuku felt the stamina drain instantly. He slumped into a chair. Midoriya, recovery girl said, wrapping the finger in a splint. Aizawa is right, you know. He's harsh, but he's not wrong. I know, Izuku mumbled, but she softened her tone. You did something today you haven't done in 10 months. What? You controlled it, she said. You didn't let the water explode the cup. You poured it out of a spout. A very small, painful spout. But it was a choice. She patted his hand. It's a start. Now get out of here. School starts in earnest tomorrow. Izuku stood up. He bowed. Thank you. He walked out of the school. The sun was gone. The streetlights were on. As he walked toward the train station, a figure stepped out from behind a vending machine. Deku. It was Bakugo. He wasn't screaming. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. Kaken? Bakugo looked up. His eyes were red. You're hiding something, Bakugo said. That power, it's not natural. You hurt yourself every time you use it. It's like it doesn't belong to you. Izuku's breath hitched. I don't know what kind of trick you pulled, Bakugo spat. But don't think you've won. You're just a pebble that learned how to explode. You're still gonna break. Maybe, Izuku said. He surprised himself with the answer. He looked Bakugo in the eye. I probably will break, Kaken. A lot. He adjusted his backpack strap. But I'm going to keep breaking until I stop. He walked past Bakugo. For the first time in their lives, Bakugo didn't chase him. He just watched him limp away into the night.